Hello and happy Friday. I am back. Hoping everyone can hear me. If you're hearing me okay, just let me know in the chat so I can fix it if it's not working. So there's always a chance. Let's see. So last week, what did we do? Oh, we added some styles to our starter theme. Not anything too crazy. But it felt like we've completed this theme as far as instructional purposes go. I'm hearing that volume is low, so let me see if I can fix that. Actually, I'm maxed, so I don't think that there's much I can do from this end. Other than maybe adjust the location of my mic. Sorry if that made a lot of noise for anyone. All right. So today I was thinking what I would do is something a little different. This is going to be a little bit more of a one-off sort of a stream. And what I want to do, let me see here. I've got too many screens, too many windows involved here. Let me see if I can switch things around a bit. I need to get back to a browser. One of these days I'm going to fix this so it's not so quirky. Okay. All right, so we're on our site now. Let's go in, and what I wanted to do was walk through the steps for a tutorial that I wrote, and that tutorial is at developer.wordpress.org/news. This website is pretty cool. Still kind of under development. The design is still in progress. It has a beta label at the top. They're trying to figure out when to remove that. But for right now, content is being published on a fairly regular basis. And on March 13th, this was published. So the idea here is to create some templates using only either the site editor or block theme templates to create something that we would have been able to create in Classic in a more dynamic way using some conditional tags. In a block theme, it's a little different. So what I want to do is go through the screen. Haha. Yes, sorry about that. Nope. Hold on a second. You're seeing the wrong thing. I unplugged some things, and when I came back and plugged it back in, it must have changed things around. So let me get you over to the correct screen. That's looking better. Okay. I didn't test that. I tested my camera, but not my screen share. Okay. So the idea is that on your first page, let me get down to the screenshot, you'll end up with a home page that creates a number of query loops with offsets, all pulling from with no additional filters as far as what comes in. This is just all of the recent posts. But where you might want to have a really big featured post as your most recent, or maybe the full post with full content. After that, you might want to gradually make the featured area smaller to fit more content. So in this case, we have an image at the top of the site with the excerpt for the most recent post. After that, we have this left-right situation with the featured image and the same, it's all basically the same information, just formatted a little bit differently. And then below that, we go into more of a grid with 3 columns. And each of these could include different blocks for the content that's being included. So I just kept them all the same in my example, but they are all separate query loops in the template, which you'll see when we get there. But if I did not want this to be the second page of this content, the way that I might do that is to create an additional template, which I'm going to move way down the page here, to this step here where my inner pages, and we're actually going to be kind of mimicking an inner page rather than having a real one, will just show the grid. So it won't have those most recent posts as different formats. There are a lot of classic themes in the theme directory that I believe will do something along these lines. And there are some ways that we could maybe do this so that we aren't kind of tricking the system, but it won't work as well as this, I think. I did a lot of consideration. I spent a lot of time thinking about the best way to approach this with just a pure block theme. If we have time at the end, it would be cool to take this and maybe extend it a little bit further, see if there's a way we can get it the rest of the way there, maybe using more of a hybrid theme approach, which would maybe be a solution if you're not necessarily all in on a pure block theme. So let's go ahead and see what we can come up with. So I don't think I have this code on this computer, so we're going to build it. So the first thing we're going to do in this tutorial is prepare our site. So I'll explain what I'm doing as I go through. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go into my reading settings for the site. For this to work correctly, you have to have the homepage template needs to show the same number of posts total as is the setting here. So we will be relying on the default query for the inner pages portion of this. So the way that I set this up, multiples of 3 works really well if you're going to be going into a 3-column grid. So that's why I have 1, 2, and then 9 at the bottom to equal 12. And then the other thing that we're going to want to do is set the static pages here. I don't have those created yet. So let's back up. In the tutorial, it actually has you create those pages before you go into the reading settings. Oh, I forgot I made this black and red. Okay. All right, so we're going to call this home. We do not need to put any content in it. And we're going to publish the page. And then we're going to make another page, add a new page, and we're going to call it blog. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's just the idea of having a page that you recognize what its intent is. Everything's going to get overwritten at the template side, so it's not going to display just a blank page the way that it does here. Okay, and then I'm going to go back into reading settings and finish what I started. So I'm going to change this back to 12. And now I want my static page settings for the home page displays. We're going to set a home page and a posts page. And what this does at the WordPress level is it says, oh, you want me to use a different template in the hierarchy for this. There's a question here about the URL. It does not. It doesn't matter for the home page. It does for the posts page. The posts page will matter. That will be displayed, and we'll see that when we load up the pages a little further along here. All right, so I'm going to save my changes. And so now if I go to the home page, well, I think I have a template already for this. That's what we worked with last week. We're going to actually replace that today. Let's go into the editor. So this site is running WordPress 6.2 RC1. I don't think that's actually the most recent release candidate, but I think it's close enough for what we're going to be doing today. Yeah, it's definitely not the most recent because navigation won't be there in this view. It's been pulled back out. But I think we still have enough that we can work with here. So when talking about the WordPress template hierarchy for your front page home page and posts page. The basic idea is that if there's nothing else, an index is going to be used. But there are two templates that are meant for these things. The front page is going to be like the absolute front page of your site. It can't be overridden by the user. We're going to actually use that here today. We're going to make a front page. It's going to have that variety of different query loops in it. And then we're going to make a home page template that is actually the posts page. So in WordPress and in anywhere in the world, really, I think we know that naming things is hard. And sometimes when you've named something, you find out later that maybe it wasn't the best name. So in WordPress's template hierarchy, home.php or home.html, depending on the type of theme you're working with, is actually your posts page. It can be the home page depending on how your site is set up. But in this case, we are going to use the home.html for our posts page, which is not the front page of our site. Hopefully that made sense. All right, we are going to edit our front page here. And I want to get rid of all this. Remove. Okay. And now what I want to do instead, like I might add our header. See if we have a header. I guess we can really choose anything. It's like it's popping my custom one into place and then all of the dynamic ones start to come in. Huh, that's strange. All right, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to pick something that's not too huge. Now we'll just pick one and then we can edit the menu. We'll remove the menu from it just so we have something in there for a header. And then we can add in our footer the same way. And I'm doing this because it's a full template. This is not just the content area, but the entire home page that we're working with here. And that went inside my header. I don't want that. Where is it? Okay, I definitely don't want that. Let's try an undo. There we go. Okay. Let's try again. I'm going to add in a footer template part instead of picking a pattern from below. All right, choose, and we will pick this template part. Okay, so that's our header and footer. Now in the middle, we want to add in all of our query loops. So we're going to insert after the header, and we're going to start with a query. Query loop. And what we can do here, just to keep it really simple, we're going to use image, date, and title for all of our loops. Okay. That's a pretty good layout here. So for this home page, what we want to do is go into the query loop block, select it over on the list view, and then for the block settings, we want to leave inherit query from template to be false. And then we want to, let's see, everything else should stay exactly the same way. We could say inner blocks use content width, which will make the whole thing feel a little bit more put together. And then over in the toolbar settings for this block, what we want to do is click the display settings. The display settings will only appear if you are not inheriting the query from the template. If you are inheriting the query from the template, then it's going to use your reading settings for these things, which won't include an option for an offset or the max page to show. So what we want to do here is just have one post. so that when we see it, it's only going to have a single post. Now, the pattern that I used, or the starter that I used for this, includes pagination. We do not want to use pagination on this front page. If we do, it's not going to go where we want it to. It's just going to repeat the same information on the next page, which is definitely not the goal here. All right, easiest thing to do for the other queries is to duplicate, and we're going to duplicate it twice. In the second query, what we'll do is we're going to say we want 2 of those, and we want the offset to be 1. The offset of 1 accounts for the post that was done previously. And then what I can do is maybe adjust the post template a little bit so that it is a little more like what I'd like it to be. So maybe we could, maybe just to keep it really simple, to save a little time, we change it to a grid, and we give it a, let's see, what are our options on the grid? Instead of 3 columns, let's make it 2 columns. So that'll give us something a little bit like what we had. And then maybe what we could do is change our post title. We still probably want it to be an H2, but maybe instead of being really large text like this, maybe we can make it a small text. And probably we would want to do the same for the date. Maybe we'll go to medium text for the title. And of course, we could add more blocks in here if we wanted to. But for demonstration purposes, I think that this is pretty good. Part of the query loop is the no results block. If you didn't want anything to display, if there were no results, then you'd probably just want to remove this, because it'll show up if there are no results in your query. All right. So last post template. We're going to select the query loop again. And this time we want to show 9 posts with an offset of 3 to account for the 2 previous loops. And then I'm going to go ahead and change this to a grid. And maybe this time I want like no date at all. Let's remove the date from it, just so you can see how I can adjust the way that which blocks are displayed for each one. And we'll go to a small title for those 9 posts. Did I set it to 9? Yeah, 9 items per page with an offset of 3. That is what I want. So let's go ahead and save this template and go see what the home page looks like now. Okay, so we've got our header. It says live stream. We have our first post as a large single item, and then we have a medium option with 2 posts, and then below that we just have 6 posts, and that's probably because that's all there is to show. We probably don't have any more posts to show. So maybe what we could do next is go back in and add more posts. So maybe we'll add like 20. And maybe we can do them across the last 15 days. I want to have real images, and I want 100% of the post to have an image. And I can actually set a image size that will be pulled in. And this is just going to pull in random royalty-free imagery for us from Lorem Pixum. All right, let's generate that, and then we'll go see if we get our whole loop. Yeah, I agree that it is pretty amazing that you can do this in 15 minutes. It's We'll have the inner pages done in another 15. Let's see if we've got some more options here. Look at that. So now we've got our grid of 9 down here. So the next thing to do is to create our home page. So let's go back into our editor. So our front page is here. We don't have a home page created. And you actually cannot create a home page from the site editor. So what we're going to have to do, we could use the index, and that would also work. So we can, this is awful. All right, but let's go ahead and create a home template in our theme. So we're still working with this speed build theme, and then in templates, save that. Okay, in templates we have a bunch of things, but no home. So we're going to create a new file. We called it home.html. And we don't actually have to put anything in it for us. Now that the file exists, the site editor will see it there, and then we can add things to it. So let's go here. Now I added this file, but if I go out into this sidebar view, I have not actually refreshed this view, so it's not going to show me that the file exists. So what I'll have to do is reload it, and now we can see the home template. And it's empty because we just created an empty HTML file. So what I could do is I can go to the front page. This is like probably the easiest way to go about doing this. I can select all of the blocks. I can use this little options drop down to say copy blocks. And then if I go back into the home template and edit this, I should be able to go into list view with the paragraph selected and paste everything in. Maybe. It's not working. I don't know why it's not working. I think that I've always pasted it into with the, oh, there it is. You're right. Thank you for that help. For mentioning the paste into the editor itself instead of to the list view. There's a question here. Does that new template also need to be listed in theme.json? You don't need to list it in theme.json, no. Not for one of these kinds of very specific parts of the template hierarchy. It doesn't need to be. There are a growing number of things that you can include, but usually what you would be including would be like custom page templates. There's a case for that, or you could, which would be to assign them to a post type other than page or post. And then the other would be template parts to assign them to be headers and footers. So those are the primary things that you would be doing there, but that we don't need to put this into. We don't need to put this into our theme.json. All right, so I'm going to take out this first query loop and the second one, because the one that's closest to what I want on this page is actually number 3. And I'm going to make 2 changes to it. One is, actually, I'm only going to make 1 change to it. I can change the items per page in the offset here, but it's not actually going to do anything on the front of the site, because what we're going to do is inherit the query from the template. That way we're going to get just a regular regular query based on our reading settings for the view that we're seeing. And this is going to be our posts page, and we're going to add pagination. So that's the other piece, is that in this query loop, we want to add in our pagination again. We're going to insert it after the post template. And then we're going to add in interesting, when maybe I spelled it wrong. Pagination is what we're looking for. And when you add in pagination as a block, then it's going to include 3 blocks inside of it. And those are going to be previous page, page numbers, and next page. We're going to remove the page numbers because they aren't going to work well for what we're trying to do. Because we're tricking the system a little bit, we're going to say, okay, I only want to show previous and next, because I'm going to have the previous page ultimately go back to the home page. So we can go ahead and save this. And now, even though we had set the blog page to have no content, now if we go to blog, it's going to show our list view. It's going to show our posts. And then we have this next page, so we can go into additional pages of this template. So the next thing we want to do is we want to link to page 2 from the home page. Oops. So what I'll do is I'm going to make a relative link here and add it to the front page template. And the idea will be that we want it to be very similar or exactly the same look as the pagination. So we're going to go back into front page, edit, open list view. After the last query loop, we're going to insert after, and it's just going to be a paragraph. And we're going to say next page. I want this to be aligned to the right. And then I'm going to turn it into a link. Oops. Okay. So that is how that's going to work. So this mostly works now. If we go back to the home page, oops, that wasn't it. Back to the home page, we can go down here. Oops, our next page is not really showing where we want it to be. So that's just a formatting thing to adjust. But if we click next, then it's going to bring us to page 2 of our posts page. All right. Okay, so let me address some things in the chat here. Enjoyed the article yesterday and implemented it, but got very confused between home and front page from the blog post alone. Today, however, you're making that super clear. I'm happy to hear that. Thanks for sharing that. And then confused between which templates went with which pages and their names. Yeah, so that whole naming things is hard. Front page is literally the front page of your site. Home page is going to be used as your posts page or index if you don't have a home page. You also could use home page as the front page, or you could create a custom page template and use that for both of them. Any of those would work, but this seemed like the most straightforward way without creating a bunch of custom work to me. It's definitely not the only way to accomplish this. All right, so I'm back in here, and what I think I want to do is turn this into a group. Okay. And then it popped into place for me. So that let's see if that changed on the front end. There we go. That's better. And then if we go to next page, then we can see previous page, next page. Probably I want these to split. So the next thing that we're going to do actually is add some custom CSS. And what I did on one of my test sites was in the home template, because the previous page on page 2 here is actually bringing us back to the first page of our posts, which does not have the layout that we created for our homepage, right? So it's still going, this view is still going to exist after we do a little bit of CSS work, but it's not going to be obvious to the user. So what I did in my test was I have to do a little bit of work here. So what I did here was after the post template, or still inside the post template, I added a paragraph that says previous page. I linked it back to the homepage. Okay. What I want though is I want this all to show up in a line. So I'm gonna bring these together. I'm gonna create a row. It might be a problem. This might just be a problem with the amount of width that there is available for these things. So let's see what happens if we make these all a little smaller. There we go. And what I want to do is say, we need to go get the class that we're going to use to hide these links depending on which page we're on. Oops, wrong place. Okay. You'll notice here that we've got a little bit of styling difference between these. It's just a matter of adjusting the spacing, the padding, something like that, to get them to look the same between the previous page and the next page. The reason we're not seeing all three right now is we're actually on page 1. So if we go to next page, then you'll see that we've got 2 previous page links and 1 next page link. And when we're in a paged view, meaning that we're on in a second page of the default query, this doesn't work for custom queries like we put on our homepage, but if we're using the default query, what we'll get is, I want to inspect. And if I go up into the body classes, I have this selector or this class called paged. So if this is paged, then I'm going to actually show one link. And if it's not paged, meaning it's the first page, then I will not. So if we go back to the first page of this with the inspector open, we're still in blog, but now there is no paged. There's no paged class in the body tag. So what we can do then is actually create a little bit of custom CSS that will hide this link if it is paged. Or I had it also set so I could only display it if it was, I don't actually remember how I did this. It's on a different computer. I might have to take a second and go look it up. And I also might have just deleted it. Darn it, I hate it when I do that. One of the nice things in 6.2 is that we get an option for additional CSS. So we did this actually. We added this red color to the paragraph tag. It's not part of our theme, but it's showing up here. But if I say paged only, I'm gonna do a paged only class here, and I'm gonna say display none. And now if I go to this, and let's see, if I choose this, I go back into the block settings. I can go to advanced, and then I can say paged only. I don't know why I did that that way, but what should happen if I did it correctly was now we see we're on the first page. Previous page is going back to the home page. Next page is going to page 2. And then here, previous page is going back to the home page. Next page is going to page 3, but we do not see a link that goes back to the first page. So, but if we go to the next page forward again, we don't see that. We don't see another next page because we don't have enough information. Okay. So we want the previous page to be going to the home page if we're on page 2, and next page if we're on and back a actual page if we're on any other page besides 2. So I think what I did here is I said page 2. So we have another body class here called page 2. And this, let's see, my logic is breaking down here. So previous page, I want to display only on page 2. I don't want an anchor. This to be a class. Am I confusing everyone now? I'm sorry. What I might have to actually do here is put it all together and then share it out in a comment or something. All right, I need more custom CSS. I wonder if I actually do have it in my other site. I'm gonna just take a second and go look. I have another computer here next to me, so. And now I'm having problems with local. Darn it. While I'm doing this, does anyone have any questions? Comments? Exciting things you're working on? I'm grabbing my settings from this other site. We'll see if I actually saved it the way that I had originally created it. It's not written up this way in the tutorial because I was trying to keep it somewhat simple. Okay. So in my additional CSS, here is what I actually have. We're going to kind of work it backwards. So in my CSS, I have paged 2, and then I have WP block query pagination previous display none. So what that means is if it's page 2, and if I spell it correctly, WP query or WP block query pagination previous. So the actual pagination previous link will not display if it's page 2. And then I have to front. So the class that I used for the previous link that should only display on page 2 is like this. And then the last part is paged to the number p dot to front, and also body dot editor. This was something that I did so that I'd still be able to see the block in the back end. Front. Display inherit. That way I can say, I actually want to override that if this is the case. So instead of the logic for whether or not to display these links being in the template, we're putting it in the styles. So there could be some impact to the site doing it this way, but by display none, it will not display to users. It will not display to screen readers. It will still be in the markup. So it is possible for that first page to get indexed. I don't know that I have a solution for that. It probably isn't that big of a deal, to be honest. All right. So we're going to save our custom styles. And the last thing that we need to do is add the to front to our paragraph tag, which is here. We're going to go into the blocks settings under advanced, and where we said page 2 only, we're just going to call that to front. And it disappeared. It wasn't supposed to do that. So I wonder if I made a mistake. It should only disappear from the front end of the site. So let's see if I typed something wrong. Baby. There we go. I did spell it wrong. Look at that. All right. Now, if I go to the front page, my next page, which is still big because I didn't change the font size for this one, I can go to next page. It brought me to page 2 of my posts page. Down here on page 2, I have the previous page link going back to the home page, the front page. My next page goes to page 3. If I go to page 3, now I don't see another next page because we reached the end of our posts for this site, and the previous page will actually go back to page 2. So we have mimicked a working pagination for this kind of workaround way of doing a home page that differs from the posts page. Yeah, so that is it in a nutshell. see if I can, let's do one more thing. So I want to demonstrate what happens with that custom CSS. I think maybe we did this last week, but if you weren't here, what we can do is overwrite our speed build block theme. We can generate that. And now if we go back to our files, we can see the front page has been updated with all of our markup. And so has the home page template. And then in theme JSON, let's see if I can find it here. In theme JSON, nothing happened. Oh, I'm in the wrong theme. That's why. Okay, here it is. So if I go in here, there should be a place under styles. We have this new CSS option, and this is where all of that custom CSS gets placed. So it actually becomes part of the theme. And because I set that custom class to my paragraph tag in the template, that also is in the theme. So now if I wanted to take this theme the way it is and push it out to another site, as long as those reading settings, as long as those reading settings have been set and those 2 pages have been created on the site, you should be good to go. All right. All right. Heading back over here to the chat. I asked the question about what everybody was working on. So let's go through those. Got to turn myself away from tutorials and docs and start a real project. Yeah, me too. But I love doing this experimental stuff. It's great. And if somebody else can benefit from it, then all the better. And then Scout says making an indie movie house site that this is helping me rethink. That's awesome. I would love it if you shared that with me when you're done. All right, and I think this might be a question. Let's see, when setting the cornerstone page, that should be the main page. What if the page instead shows up as a sub page? I think I might need to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying cornerstone page is. Are you saying that's the root page of the site, what you land on if you just go to the domain name? If you were to, and when you say, what if this page instead shows up as a sub page? So to have a sub page in WordPress, you would give it a parent page. So if you wanted to use this technique to create like a mini site, you'd have to go about it a little differently. The blocks would all stay the same, but the way that you created the template files might be different. So, okay. So if you have, so I think this was the what I was not understanding. Expected it to be the main page. I don't know why it shows up in the header menu instead. So you'll want to adjust your header menu so that link is not present. The default behavior for a navigation menu in WordPress at this point is to just do a list of pages rather. So you can adjust that after the fact, but the default, as soon as you add the menu in or the navigation in, it's just going to list all of your pages. So you may not want that. The idea is to give you something useful out of the box, but most sites are not going to want to show every page in their navigation. So now if you did not set the page as, all right, so I see that you have a link. So your homepage is going to /home. Did you set the reading settings to do the home as the front page and the blog as the post page? There is no plugin for the menu. So your mileage may vary if you're using something different for your menus. So if I go in here and let's see what happens if I add in a navigation. I'm just going to add a default navigation block. It's going to add all of my pages here. And I do see home here. So let me get rid of some stuff from this. I'll keep the home page in there, but let's get rid of some of these other things. It just makes it really hard to see. And maybe what I could do is make the text smaller. Let's try that. Okay. Which template was I in? The front page? Oh, I'm in the header. It should go across the site. Okay, here we go. So home is actually going to the front page and blog is going to the blog page. So that actually is working the way that I would expect it to. What happens is when you set the reading settings, here, the whatever's set to homepage is the URL is gonna get filtered so that is going back to the homepage, and it shouldn't ever generate a link. If things are being done the WordPress way, then it should never generate the slug for that page. The slug still exists. If you were to change this away from that page, then the homepage would still be accessible at its home slug. And if you try to hit it directly, then it's going to redirect you back to the front. So this is a comment, might be helpful. The reading settings set post page will have its regular URL and reflect the home.html template. Yep, that is accurate. So that's that. So if we wanted to do this so that we didn't have to do the CSS trickery, the alternative method would be something to the effect of creating a hybrid theme, or a classic theme that uses block templates would also work, where you're pulling in your block template parts, your template parts, right, into your PHP files. So if we went into, let me find a classic theme, 2021. If we went, let's say, into index.php, I think that is what we have to work with in this file. Oops. It's really hard for me to read. I'm going to go a little smaller because I think it will still be visible to you. Okay. If we wanted to create like this, so a few weeks ago, we did the experiment to try to recreate this kind of conditional situation with switching between an H1 or not. Like if is the home and not the front page. And so you do all these things. It checks all this. And if that's all true, if the if statement is true at the end, then it would show the header in an H1 tag. And then I think that there's otherwise you would do something different. I thought it was switching it to a paragraph tag, but I'm not seeing that here now. Oh, it's for the page title. So it was only showing the page title if these things are true. So if you wanted to do something like that, you could, in this, instead of this markup here, you could replace that with, if these things are true, then insert this template part. And let's go look up the code for that. There is a a tutorial. I think this is probably video. A tutorial on doing this on the Learn site, but I think that there's a dev note too, or something in the handbook maybe. Sorry, I'm scrolling fast because I'm not sure that this has the information we're looking for. I think it's a dev note that we're looking for. Let's see, site WordPress.org. Core. Okay, so here's the dev note. Dev notes are written by the developers to explain a new feature or change in WordPress that will affect developers. So in this case, this was a new feature that would benefit theme developers. And what we can do is, if you have a classic theme, first of all, you need to enable the option to add block template part support. I'm going to throw this link into the chat for everyone. All right. And then in your template, you could create, just like we do for a block theme, to create in your theme directory a parts directory. And then within that parts directory, you can create all your template parts. So you could create a footer. You could create a loop. You could create all of these files using block, like site editor functionality, but still have all of your wrapping markup be controlled by your classic theme. So it's kind of creating a hybrid situation. It's a super good option to have if you're looking to gradually adopt these features. If you maybe want to start replacing your sidebars and your headers and your footers, and even the old template parts that we used to use. So for example, let's go back to this code here. We have a directory in here called template parts. And all of these template parts are actually controlling different parts of the site. So, and they're PHP files. So we could replace this whole concept by putting all of these template parts into the parts directory as HTML files. We would lose the ability at this level to do conditional logic, but we can build the conditional logic into the templates, which are still going to be PHP files in that case. So it's kind of an advanced usage. But if you are working with a classic theme already, this is the fastest way to get some block template part markup right into your theme without having to reinvent the wheel. So the way that you would include it into your template would be this right here. So if I go back to the template that I was in before, which was index, and let's say this has get footer. If I didn't want to have get footer, I could actually include that here. Probably we would not want to do that. So if I go into footer here, I could actually just find the part of the footer that is being controlled. Like maybe it's this right here. And I could just throw in that block template part right there, and it'll just render the blocks for that template part. And so you can still simplify your PHP files by using these template parts, and then take advantage of a lot of the dynamic generation of CSS and all of those things without completely redoing all of your wrapping markup, which would trickle down to all kinds of styling problems for your sites. So here is a comment. That's what I really need to figure out. I use underscores for everything and have been including theme.json, but there are some great features through the site editor I want to make use of. This is the way to do it. So you just swap out your markup and whatever dynamic content you're putting into your template file with this block template part function that calls in the name of the template part. So in the case of what is here, footer, it would be the footer.html file that's in your parts directory. So that is that. That was just like a taste of what you could potentially do in a classic theme with block template parts. It would be a good one. That would maybe be a good another standalone topic where we can maybe try to take this underscores theme and see how much we can break out into template parts. Which then, if you have that kind of a theme, you don't get access to the full site editor on the site, but what you would get is under appearance, instead of editor, it would say template parts. And so it's kind of like that in between. You still have like things locked down so your clients can't break the wrappers, but you get some of the benefits of the site editor. So, and I think what you end up seeing when you go in to create your template parts or work with the template parts from within your site is this experience where it's the zoomed in experience only on the part. So this is another thing that sometimes I've heard feedback around, well, how do I make this easy enough for my clients to use? Because they're used to just filling out an ACF form or something. Well, this would get you a little bit less overwhelmed when editing these parts. So you could say, okay, if you want to edit your header, you go here, and then it's similar to editing a post or a page. Yeah, so that is it for this week. What time we've got? Oh, we've got a little more time. So does anybody have anything else? Anything you want me to dig into a little further? Something I can demonstrate or answer questions on or chat about? What would be something you'd like to see next week? That's a good question. Should I do the converting a classic theme to a hybrid theme? Maybe using underscores? So yeah, let's do that. We'll take our underscores starter theme or some theme. Maybe we'll choose something that looks a little nicer and see how far we can get. And let's see if we can convert it to a hybrid theme. Maybe we'll take like 2021. That might be a good one because that actually has some design to it. So maybe we can see like, what are the pitfalls of trying to do this? Where do we find things break down? And chances are something will break down because what we're going to be doing is changing the markup of the site, which is going to trickle down into how the site looks at the end unless we address those issues as we go along. So I think that would be a great one. It may take more than 1 week. So maybe we should just try to, let's convert one template or 2 templates. We'll see how far we get. But yeah, block spacing is always going to be an issue. Yeah, block spacing in general is an issue. It's a really difficult concept to get your head wrapped around just in web development in general, but in the way that WordPress and Gutenberg are making the effort to to abstract the math from it for the person using it, to pull the math away and to do some of those calculations for you. I'll be honest, I haven't really dug into it enough to really, really understand it. So, but yeah, I think that's what we'll do next week. We'll convert a classic template to a hybrid template using template parts. And then I can also show sometime. Actually, I could do this right now. If we got a few people still here, One other thing that I think is kind of interesting is if you have a classic theme and you don't want to completely overhaul it, but you want to get the site editor, the one file, you only have to replace one file, and that will be your index file. If you convert your index.php file to be a block template instead, then you get the site editor. that is the file that it's going to look for, and then you'd be able to build out pages. The problem is that chances are you're using that index template for something else. So you might change it to be like whatever the fallbacks would be before that index, and give it something other than the index to fall back to. So, but let's say I was in my 2021 theme and I took this index template here. Actually, before I do that, let's go back to the site and activate the theme. Okay, so if I go into themes, I can go to 2021, which is our classic theme. And now we see that we have the customizer back and widgets and menus, all these things that don't show up if we're in a block theme have returned. If I rename, if I rename this, I don't want to delete it because it's a pain to get it back again. And then instead, I create a folder in the same directory. I'll create a folder called templates. And then if I add in the template of index.html, let me take this, I'll copy and paste. That way it's already got some stuff in it. All right. And now if I go back and reload that site, first of all, it's going to look totally different on the front end now. Actually, it's not going to look like anything at all because I did not set the reading settings. Okay, let's try that. It gave me nothing at all. All right, but if I go into appearance now, in addition to customizer and menus and background widgets, all those classic things, I also have all of the block theme things. So the editor is here, as well as the things for create block theme. So if I go into editor now, that's why. So these template parts that were in here, I guess, don't actually exist. So we would have to fix those. And there we have it. That is that's the gist of how you could take a complete classic theme and turn it into a hybrid theme with just a single file. So probably what I would do here is just delete this and maybe add in query loop and maybe put in a pattern for it and save that. Let's see if we get something more sensible now. There it is. So now this classic theme, if I go into any of these individual posts, we're going to see the actual classic parts of it. But the home page, which is pulling from the index.html file, is a block template. And then you could actually do that slowly. You could convert your page. You can convert your single. You could convert everything one file at a time. And this is how you would get access to the entire site editor. So, all righty. I think we will call this a day. Pretty excited about what we accomplished here today. I hope you all learned something. I learned that I should probably get my CSS in place before I start the stream so I don't have to go between two computers. I use one computer for streaming and one computer for working. So, and that is that. I enjoy hanging with you all. So thanks again, and I will see you next week.